Eleanor Worthington had everything money could buy: a clifftop hotel, a spotless reputation, and a mother who controlled her every move. But when a storm brought Marcus Hale and his 6-year-old daughter into her life, everything she thought she knew about love, pride, and control was about to shatter. One photograph, one rumor, and suddenly the town believed the worst: that the wealthy heiress was buying affection from the single father hired to fix her balcony. What they didn't know was the truth hiding beneath the gossip: the quiet kiss that would change everything, and the devastating moment when Marcus would walk away, refusing to be handled like one of her problems. This is the story of a woman who learned that the one thing she wanted most couldn't be purchased, and a man who had to choose between protecting his dignity and opening his heart. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from in the comments below. The storm had blown through just after lunch, leaving the balcony railing twisted and the cafe awning half collapsed against the cliffside wall. Eleanor Worthington stood in the lobby doorway with her clipboard, watching the wind still push foam across the rocks below. Her manager, Tim, was beside her, shaking his head. "Insurance will cover it," he said. "But we need someone now. The balcony's not safe." Ellie nodded. She'd inherited the Cliffside Inn 8 months ago when her father died. 12 rooms, a small cafe, and a view that made guests cry. She'd been trying to bring it back to life ever since. Some days felt like winning. Today felt like starting over. A truck pulled into the gravel lot. Dark blue, older model, clean. A man stepped out, tall, black, wearing a canvas jacket and work boots that had seen real miles. He had a tool belt slung over one shoulder and a pink backpack in the other hand. Ellie walked outside. "Are you Marcus Hale?" "Yes, ma'am." His voice was steady, respectful but not soft. "Tim called me about the balcony. I brought my daughter. School just let out. She'll stay in the lobby if that's all right." Ellie looked past him. A little girl with neat braids sat in the passenger seat, coloring book open on her lap. She looked maybe 6, her legs swinging. "Of course," Ellie said. "There's a table near the window. I'll bring her some juice." Marcus nodded once, then opened the truck door. "Maya, baby, come on, bring your crayons." Maya climbed down carefully, backpack bouncing. She gave Ellie a quick, shy glance before following her father inside. Tim showed Marcus the damaged balcony. Ellie stayed back, watching. Marcus didn't rush. He tested the railing, checked the bolts, ran his hand along the beam where water had soaked in. He took out his phone and snapped a few pictures, then made notes on a small pad. "It's not just cosmetic," he said finally. "The beams rotted underneath. I'll need to pull the boards, replace the support, then rebuild the rail." "It's 2, maybe 3 days of work. I can start tomorrow if you've got the permits ready." Ellie crossed her arms. "What if I paid you double to start today?" Marcus looked at her. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. "I appreciate the offer, but I don't cut corners. Not for double, not for triple. I'll do it right, on schedule, and it'll last. That's what you're paying for." Ellie felt her cheeks warm. She'd been so used to throwing money at problems that she'd forgotten some people didn't want it that way. "Fair enough," she said quietly. "What do you need from me?" "Permits by 8 a.m., a list of materials I can order tonight, and a contact number in case something changes." "Done." Marcus glanced at his watch. "I need to get Maya home for dinner. We'll be back tomorrow morning." Ellie walked them to the truck. Maya was clutching a drawing she'd made, a lighthouse with a lopsided star above it. She held it up for her father to see. "That's beautiful, baby," Marcus said, his whole face softening. "We'll hang it on the fridge." Ellie stood in the gravel as they drove away. The sun was dropping, painting the ocean gold and pink. She felt something shift in her chest. She didn't know what it was yet. The next morning, Marcus arrived at 8 sharp. Ellie had the permits printed and clipped to a folder. She also brought 2 cups of black coffee and a list of vendor contacts her father had used. "I wasn't sure how you take it," she said, handing him a cup. "Black's perfect. Thank you." They stood on the balcony together. The morning was cool and the sea was calm now, almost silver. Marcus unfolded the permit and read it carefully. Then he looked at her list. "You don't have to do that," he said. "Do what?" "Give me your vendors. I've got my own suppliers." Ellie blinked. "I just thought it might save you time." "I appreciate it, but I like to manage my own orders. Keeps things clean." She nodded slowly. She wasn't offended, but she was surprised. Most contractors were happy to let her make calls. Marcus wasn't like most contractors. "Okay," she said, "but if you need anything, let me know." "Will do." They agreed to check in every day at 4 p.m. Marcus would update her on progress, and she'd handle any guest concerns. It was simple, professional. Ellie liked that. Around mid-morning, she brought him a bottle of water. He was measuring the damaged beam, pencil tucked behind his ear. She noticed the way he worked. Methodical, no wasted motion. When he climbed the ladder to check the upper bolts, Ellie stepped forward without thinking and steadied it. "Thanks," he said from above. "No problem." Their eyes met for just a second. Then Marcus went back to work, and Ellie went back inside. But something about that moment stayed with her. At 4:15, Marcus found her in the lobby. He handed her a handwritten plan, materials, timeline, safety notes, and taped a copy to the corkboard by the front desk. "That's for your guests," he said, "so they know what's happening." Ellie read it twice. It was clear, thorough, and respectful. She hadn't asked for it, but he'd done it anyway. "Thank you," she said. Maya appeared in the doorway, backpack on, waving at Ellie with one small hand. "Bye, Miss Ellie." "Bye, Maya." Marcus gave a polite nod and left. Ellie watched through the window as he buckled Maya into the truck, then drove slowly out of the lot. She realized she was smiling. The following day, late morning, Marcus was pulling up the warped floorboards near the cafe door. Ellie was inside, organizing linens, when she heard him call her name. She stepped outside. He was kneeling, holding a small velvet pouch. "Found this under the boards," he said. "Looks old." Ellie's heart stopped. She took the pouch, untied the string, and pulled out a silver pocket watch. The back was engraved. "For James, time well spent. Love, E., her father's watch." Her mother had given it to him on their 10th anniversary. Ellie had thought it was lost years ago. "Oh my God," she whispered. Marcus stood, brushing sawdust off his knees. "I cleaned it a little. Didn't want the salt air to do more damage." Ellie looked up at him. "You could have just handed it over." "Could have. But you took care of it first." He shrugged. Seemed like the right thing to do. Ellie's throat tightened. She'd offered him double pay, and he'd refused. Now he'd found something priceless and treated it like it mattered. She wanted to give him something, anything, but she knew he'd say no. "Thank you," she said, and her voice cracked just a little. Marcus nodded. "You're welcome." That evening, long after Marcus and Maya had gone home, Ellie sat alone in the empty cafe. She fastened the watch around her wrist, even though it was too big. Her thumb traced the engraving. She'd spent the last year trying to save this hotel with money, connections, and sheer will. But Marcus had reminded her of something she'd forgotten. Integrity couldn't be bought. And sometimes the rarest gift was someone who did the right thing without asking for credit. She sat there until the sun set, the watch ticking softly against her wrist. The next evening, a power surge knocked out half the hotel's lights. Ellie and Tim scrambled to reset breakers, while Marcus and his assistant worked by flashlight to finish sealing a section of the balcony. By 7:30, the lights flickered back on, and everyone let out a relieved breath. Ellie made a pot of coffee and brought it out to the crew. Maya was at her usual corner table, spreading crayons across the surface like a tiny artist. She'd drawn 3 pictures that day: a boat, a dog, and another lighthouse. "You really like lighthouses, huh?" Ellie said, crouching beside her. Maya nodded, suddenly shy. "Daddy says they help people find their way home." Ellie smiled. "Your daddy's a smart man." Marcus walked over, wiping his hands on a rag. "You didn't have to make coffee for us." "No," Ellie said, "but I wanted to." He accepted a cup, and they stood together in the warm lobby. The storm felt like a long time ago now. Ellie found herself talking without meaning to, about her father, about how he used to teach her small things like changing a tire or reading a map. She missed him every day, but she didn't usually say that out loud. Marcus listened. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he said, "Sounds like he gave you more than a hotel." "Yeah, he did." Marcus glanced at Maya. "We do 2 stories and 1 song every night. Routine keeps her steady." Ellie heard the care in his voice. She didn't press him for more. Some people shared their whole story right away. Marcus wasn't one of them, and that was okay. By 8:45, the crew was packing up. Maya tucked a drawing into Marcus's jacket pocket, a lighthouse with a heart next to it. He smiled and zipped the pocket carefully. Ellie locked up after they left. She felt lighter than she had in weeks. She didn't know why yet. She just knew Marcus and Maya had something to do with it. The next afternoon, Ellie's mother arrived unannounced. Grace Worthington was 58, elegant, and used to being in charge. She swept into the lobby with a leather portfolio and a tight smile. "Eleanor, the paint samples you chose are far too bold." "Hello, Mother." Grace opened the portfolio. "I brought softer tones, and I need you to attend the donor dinner Thursday. Senator Calloway's wife will be there." Ellie set down her clipboard. "I'm managing a balcony repair right now." "You're managing crews," Grace corrected. "That's not where you're needed. You're needed in front of people who write checks." Before Ellie could answer, her Aunt Ruth walked in, carrying a basket of blueberry muffins. Ruth was Grace's older sister, but the two couldn't have been more different. Ruth wore jeans and sneakers. Grace wore pearls. "Gracie, leave the girl alone," Ruth said, setting the basket on the counter. "She's doing fine." "She's doing manual labor," Grace said. "She's doing her job." Ellie looked between them. This was a familiar dance. Grace wanted control. Ruth wanted breathing room, and Ellie was always caught in the middle. "I'm staying here Thursday," Ellie said quietly. "The punch list isn't done." Grace's mouth tightened. "People will notice." "Let them." Grace gathered her portfolio and left without another word. Ruth waited until the door closed, then handed Ellie a muffin. "Pick real, not perfect," Ruth said. Ellie nodded, but worry still sat heavy in her chest. The next morning, Dean Caldwell walked through the front door like he owned the place. He didn't knock. He never did. Dean was Ellie's ex-boyfriend, polished, charming, and convinced he knew what was best for everyone. He carried a bouquet of white roses and a leather folder. "Ellie, you look tired." "Hello, Dean." He set the roses on the desk. "I've been thinking about the hotel. You're doing great work, but you need..." "To elevate the brand, I put together some ideas." Ellie didn't open the folder. "I'm not looking for a rebrand." "You're thinking too small. This place could be a destination. but you're stuck in summer camp management mode. Marcus walked in then, tool belt on, carrying a box of hardware. He stopped when he saw Dean. The two men looked at each other. Marcus Hale, Marcus said, extending a hand. Dean Caldwell? Dean shook it, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. You're the contractor? That's right. Dean turned back to Ellie. Dinner Friday? We can go over the plan. I'm busy Friday. Saturday then. Dean, I'm not interested. His jaw tightened, but he kept smiling. Think about it. You know where to find me. He left the folder on the desk and walked out. Ellie slid it into a drawer without looking. Marcus didn't say anything, but Ellie saw the way his shoulders had tensed. She wanted to explain, but she didn't know how. So she just said, "Let me know if you need anything today." "Will do." He left, and Ellie stood there, staring at the closed drawer, wishing people would stop trying to fix her life. That afternoon, Ellie handed Marcus a thick manila envelope. Inside were the balcony permits, a spare key to the storage shed, and a checklist for the final inspection. They were standing near the front desk, and a guest with a phone was lingering by the coffee station. Ellie didn't think anything of it. Marcus took the envelope, thanked her, and said the beam delivery was scheduled for 9 a.m. the next day. Perfect, Ellie said. I'll make sure the driveway's clear. They talked for another minute, then Marcus left. Ellie went back to work. That night, her phone buzzed at 9:30. It was a notification from a local Facebook group. Someone had posted a photo, blurry, taken from an angle, of Ellie handing Marcus the envelope. The caption read, "Heiress tipping her handyman?" Ellie's stomach dropped. The angle made it look like she was handing him cash. The comments were already starting. That's generous. Must be nice to have that kind of money. Is that even legal? Ellie stared at the screen. Her first instinct was to comment, to explain. But something stopped her. She set the phone down and tried to sleep. She didn't manage much. The next morning, Marcus arrived at 8:50 to unload the balcony beams. Ellie was waiting outside, her phone in her hand, her stomach still tight from the night before. Morning, Marcus said, lowering the tailgate. Morning. Ellie hesitated. Can I show you something? She handed him her phone. Marcus looked at the photo, read the caption, then scrolled through a few comments. His face didn't change. He handed the phone back. People talk, he said. It'll blow over. But it's not true. That was permits and a key. I can post a correction. Don't. His voice was firm, but not unkind. You start explaining, they'll think there's something to explain. Let it die. Ellie wanted to argue. She wanted to fix it. But she could see Marcus wasn't worried. Or maybe he was just used to this kind of thing. Either way, he didn't want her help. Okay, she said quietly. Good. Marcus grabbed a beam and carried it toward the balcony. Let's get to work. Ellie set her phone face down on the desk and tried to focus, but the knot in her chest wouldn't loosen. She'd grown up with money, and she knew how fast people could turn a story into something ugly. She didn't want Marcus caught in that. By 10 a.m., the beam was in place, and Marcus was securing the brackets. Ellie brought him water and stayed quiet. They worked side by side without saying much. It felt like a truce, but an uneasy one. That afternoon, Marcus drove to the hardware store to pick up screws and sealant. He walked in, grabbed what he needed, and headed to the counter. Two men were standing near the paint aisle. One of them called out, "Hey, Marcus, heard you got a sugar mama now." Marcus kept walking. "I'm just saying," the man continued, grinning. "Heiress money spends real nice, don't it?" The other man laughed. Marcus paid for his supplies, said nothing, and left. His jaw was tight the whole drive back. Meanwhile, at the hotel, two guests were whispering near the coffee station. Ellie overheard one of them say, I saw the post. Do you think she's paying him extra? Ellie stepped forward, smiling too brightly. That was actually just paperwork. Permits for the balcony. Totally normal. The guests nodded, but their eyes stayed curious. One of them asked, So, you two aren't… No, he's a contractor. I'm the owner. That's it. Ellie offered them free coffee and pastries, trying to smooth things over. But the more she explained, the more interested they seemed. By the time they walked away, she felt like she'd poured gasoline on a campfire. Aunt Ruth found her in the office 20 minutes later, staring at her desk. You tried to fix it, didn't you? Ruth said. I thought if I explained… Don't pour water on smoke, honey. It just makes steam. Ellie dropped her head into her hands. Ruth sat beside her and squeezed her shoulder. Let people think what they want, Ruth said gently. You know the truth. That's enough. Ellie wanted to believe her, but she'd spent her whole life managing her reputation. Letting go felt impossible. At 4:05, Marcus came back. He and Ellie exchanged polite updates about the day's progress. They didn't talk about the photo. They didn't talk about the whispers. But the air between them felt heavier than before. The next evening, Ellie offered to pick up groceries for the work crew. Marcus said he'd go with her and pay for his portion. Ellie started to argue, then stopped herself. She was learning. They drove to the grocery store together. Maya sat in the cart, carefully choosing apples, 3 red, 1 green. Ellie watched her pick each one like it mattered. She's very particular, Ellie said. She gets that from me, Marcus said, almost smiling. They moved through the aisles slowly. Ellie grabbed bread, sandwich meat, and chips. Marcus added peanut butter and bananas. At the register, he handed the cashier a 20 before Ellie could reach for her wallet. I've got mine, he said. I know. Outside, loading bags into the truck, Ellie said, I cook when I'm anxious. It's weird, but it helps. Marcus glanced at her. That's not weird. That's a good kind of anxious to have. Ellie smiled a little. What do you do when you're anxious? Fix things. Build things. Keep my hands busy. That makes sense? They drove back in comfortable silence. Maya hummed a song from school, her legs swinging. Ellie felt the knot in her chest loosen just a little. Back at the hotel, they unpacked the groceries in the staff kitchen. Marcus set aside sandwich supplies for the next day. Ellie picked up a small apple, the green one Maya had chosen, and set it in a plastic bag. For her lunchbox, Ellie said. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Thank you. That night, Ellie texted her manager and canceled the donor dinner scheduled for tomorrow. She didn't explain why. She just said she needed to be at the hotel. Grace would be furious, but Ellie was starting to realize that some things mattered more than her mother's approval. The next day, Ellie did something she hadn't planned. Maya's school was having an art show at 1 p.m. Marcus had mentioned it in passing the day before, but he didn't invite her. Ellie knew it wasn't her place, but she couldn't stop thinking about Maya's lighthouse drawings, the careful way she colored inside the lines. So, at 12:45, Ellie slipped out of the hotel, drove to the elementary school, and walked into the small auditorium. She took off her sunglasses and stood in the back, behind the other parents. The walls were covered with student artwork. Ellie found Maya's section easily, 3 lighthouse drawings, each one brighter than the last. The biggest one was hung front and center, with a blue ribbon pinned to the corner. Ellie's throat tightened. She didn't take any pictures. She didn't announce herself. She just stood there, hands folded, and smiled. Marcus was near the front, crouching beside Maya, pointing at her drawings. When he stood and turned, he saw Ellie. His eyes widened just for a second. Then his expression softened. Ellie gave a small wave. Marcus nodded. Maya followed his gaze, saw Ellie, and grinned so wide her whole face lit up. Ellie stayed for 15 minutes, then slipped out before the formal presentation started. She didn't want to make it about her. But when she walked to her car, she saw Grace's sedan parked at the curb. Her mother was inside, scrolling through her phone. Their eyes met. Grace's face went tight. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just looked away. Ellie kept walking. For the first time, she didn't stop to explain herself. She got in her car and drove back to the hotel, her heart pounding, but steady. That evening, Dean showed up at Grace's house. He brought a printed copy of the rumor photo and set it on the kitchen table like evidence. "I'm worried about Eleanor," he said, his voice smooth. "People are talking. It's not good for the hotel." Grace studied the photo. "Who took this?" "Does it matter? It's out there. And if donors start asking questions, I'll handle Eleanor." Dean leaned back, satisfied. "I can help with communications. Spin it the right way. Make it clear she's just being generous to her staff." Grace didn't answer right away. Then she picked up her phone and called Ellie. Ellie answered on the third ring. "Hi, Mom." "Eleanor, we need to talk about this contractor situation." Ellie's stomach sank. "There's no situation. There's a photo and comments. Donors will ask questions. Then I'll answer them. Not the way you've been answering them. You're making it worse." Ellie closed her eyes. "Mom, I need you to trust me." "Trust you to what? Ruin your reputation over a man you barely know?" "I'm not ruining anything. I'm just—" Ellie stopped. She didn't owe her mother an explanation. Not about this. "I need space, Mom. Please." Grace's voice went cold. "Fine, but don't come to me when this falls apart." The line went dead. 10 minutes later, Dean texted Ellie. "I can help manage this if you want. Just say the word." Ellie read the message twice. Then she deleted it. She put her phone in a drawer, sat on the edge of her bed, and took a long, slow breath. She wasn't going to let Dean fix this. She wasn't going to let her mother control this. She was going to trust Marcus's instinct and let it blow over. It was the hardest thing she'd done in months. The next morning brought steady rain. By 10 a.m., a small leak appeared over the cafe doorway, right where the old awning had pulled away from the wall. Ellie grabbed buckets and towels. Marcus grabbed sealant and a ladder. They worked together in the quiet rhythm of people who didn't need to talk much. The rain drummed on the roof. The cafe smelled like coffee and wet wood. Ellie held the ladder while Marcus applied the sealant, then they waited for it to cure. "Soup?" Ellie asked. "Sure." She heated up a simple vegetable soup she'd made the night before. They sat at the small staff table, bowls between them, while the rain kept falling. Ellie laughed when Marcus accidentally knocked over the salt shaker. He smiled when she told a story about her father trying to fix a gutter and falling into a rose bush. Their hands brushed when Ellie passed him a spoon. Neither of them pulled away quickly. The air in the room shifted, warmer, softer, more alive. By 2:30, the leak was sealed. Ellie wiped the last drip of water from the doorframe with a towel. Marcus stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "Good work," he said. "You too." They smiled at each other. Ellie felt her pulse quicken. She didn't know what this was yet, but she knew it was something. That evening, another photo surfaced. This one was blurry, taken through the cafe window. It showed Ellie and Marcus sitting close, laughing. The caption read, "Getting cozy at the Cliffside Inn." The comments came fast. I knew it. Good for her, honestly. Is he using her, or is she using him? Does it matter? They look happy. Marcus's supplier called that night and asked, "So, you got some new financing lined up?" The tone was joking, but the edge was sharp. Marcus hung up without answering. Ellie wanted to post a statement. She wanted to call the person who took the photo and ask them to take it down. But Marcus had asked her not to explain, so she didn't. She sat on her couch, staring at her phone, feeling helpless. At 9:40, Marcus texted her. "Let's just focus on the work. We're almost done." Ellie wrote back, "Okay." But when she went to bed that night, the rain was still falling, and she couldn't stop thinking about the way their hands had touched over a spoon. The next night, the hotel closed early so Marcus could sand and seal the balcony floor. Maya had come along after school, and by 8 p.m., she was asleep on one of the dining room banquettes, her coloring book open beside her. Ellie and Marcus sat at a small table near the window. A record player in the corner played something soft and old. Jazz, maybe. The rain had stopped, and the ocean was dark and calm. "She's a good kid," Ellie said, glancing at Maya. "She's the best thing I ever did," Marcus said quietly. "Does she ask about her mom?" Marcus hesitated, then he nodded. "Sometimes. I tell her the truth, that her mom loved her, but she couldn't stay. It's hard, but Maya's strong." Ellie didn't press. She just said, "You're doing a good job." "Thanks." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Marcus said, "Tell me about the watch." Ellie touched her wrist where she'd worn it earlier. "My mom gave it to my dad on their 10th anniversary. He carried it everywhere. When he died, I thought it was gone. Finding it felt like, I don't know, like he was still here, a little bit." Marcus nodded. "That's a good feeling to hold on to." "Yeah." The record changed. Something slower. Ellie felt her heart beating in her throat. She looked at Marcus, and he looked back, and the space between them felt electric. "I like you," Ellie said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. Marcus smiled, really smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. "I like you too." He leaned in. She met him halfway. The kiss was slow, unhurried, and certain. It wasn't fireworks. It was steady, real, right. When they pulled apart, Marcus said, "We should take this slow, for Maya's sake." "I understand. But I want this," he said. "I want you." Ellie's chest filled with warmth. "I want you too." At 10:30, Marcus carried sleeping Maya to the truck. Ellie stood in the doorway, watching them go. She touched her fingers to her lips and felt radiant, steady, hopeful, for the first time in a long time. The future didn't feel like something she had to control. It felt like something she could trust. The next afternoon, Marcus was checking his email on his phone when he saw something that made his whole body go still. A vendor invoice, one he'd been carrying for 2 weeks because cash flow was tight, had been marked paid. The payment source was listed as Cliffside Inn vendor credit. Ellie had paid it. Marcus set his phone down carefully. His jaw tightened. He looked across the lobby and saw Ellie at the front desk, smiling at a guest, completely unaware of what was about to happen. He waited until the guest left. Then he walked over. "Ellie, can we talk? Private." She looked up, and her smile faded when she saw his face. "Of course. My office." They walked into the small back office. Marcus closed the door. "Why did you pay my supplier invoice?" His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Ellie blinked. I saw it was overdue, and I thought I could help. You've been working so hard, and I didn't want you to—" "You didn't want me to what? Manage my own business?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Ellie?" She hesitated. "I meant I wanted to make things easier for you. That's all." Marcus shook his head. "You can't do that. You can't just step in and fix my problems without asking. That's not help. That's control." "I wasn't trying to control you." "Yes, you were." His voice rose slightly, then he pulled it back. You saw something you thought was broken, and you threw money at it. Just like you tried to pay me double on day one. Just like you handed me vendor lists I didn't ask for. You don't trust me to handle my own life. Ellie's throat tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? Marcus looked at her, and for the first time she saw real anger in his eyes. Do you know what people are already saying about me? That I'm using you? That I'm letting you bankroll me? And now you go and pay my bills behind my back. How does that look? I wasn't thinking about how it looked. Well, I have to think about it. Because I've got a daughter who hears things at school. I've got a reputation I've built with my own 2 hands. And I won't be handled, Ellie. Not by you, not by anyone. Ellie felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them back. I'm sorry. I was just trying to help. I know. Marcus's voice softened, but his face stayed hard. But I can't be with someone who thinks I need saving. I need a partner, not a fixer. Marcus, please. I need time. He opened the door. I'll finish the balcony, but I can't do this right now. He walked out. Ellie stood frozen in the office, her hands shaking. She heard the front door close. Then silence. She sat down at her desk and stared at the invoice on her computer screen. She'd meant well. She'd only wanted to help. But she'd crossed a line she didn't even know was there. At dusk, she printed the reversal form. She canceled the payment and filed the receipt in a folder. Then she sat in the empty lobby and let herself cry. The next morning, Ellie woke up early. She wrote a note by hand. No computer, no polish. Just honesty. Marcus, I'm sorry. You were right. I tried to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. I didn't trust you to handle it, and that was wrong. I've reversed the payment. You don't owe me anything. I wasn't trying to control you. But I see now that's exactly what I did. I'm working on that. I hope you can forgive me. Ellie. She drove to the hotel at 9 a.m. and left the note on Marcus's workbench, along with the canceled receipt. No voicemail, no text, no pressure. Then she went to Aunt Ruth's house and showed her the note before delivering it. Ruth read it carefully. This part, I wasn't trying to control you. Take that out. Why? Because it's an excuse. You apologized, then you defended yourself. Pick one. Ellie rewrote the note. This time, she left out the excuse. When she delivered it to Marcus's bench, it was cleaner. Simpler. True. She didn't wait around to see if he read it. She went back to the hotel and let Tim handle most of the guest interactions. She couldn't smile today. She didn't have it in her. By noon, she filed the canceled receipt in a folder labeled, Do Not Resend, and shut the drawer. That afternoon, Marcus sat in his small living room while Maya practiced lines for a school recital. She was playing a sunflower in a garden play. Her lines were simple, but she took them seriously. I reach for the sun, Maya said, stretching her arms up. I grow a little more every day. That's perfect, baby, Marcus said. Maya lowered her arms. Is Miss Ellie gonna come? Marcus froze. I don't know. Did you ask her? Not yet. Maya tilted her head. Why not? Because... Marcus trailed off. He didn't know how to explain grown-up problems to a 6-year-old. Miss Ellie and I had a disagreement. Did you say sorry? She did. Did you say it back? Marcus looked at his daughter. Her eyes were wide and serious. He'd been teaching her about forgiveness her whole life. How to apologize. How to accept apologies. How to let go of hurt. But he wasn't modeling it. He was holding on to his anger like a shield. Not yet, Marcus admitted. You should, Maya said. That's what you always tell me. Marcus pulled her into a hug. You're right. That evening, after Maya went to bed, Marcus sat at the kitchen table and read Ellie's note again. It was sitting in his cookbook where he'd tucked it earlier. He ran his thumb over the words. She hadn't made excuses. She hadn't pushed. She'd just apologized and stepped back. Marcus set the note down and stared at the ceiling. He was still angry, but he was also tired, and maybe, just maybe, he'd been holding on too tight. The next day at 3 p.m., Ellie was supposed to be at a high-profile menu tasting her mother had organized. Grace had invited 2 local food critics and a potential investor. It was the kind of event Ellie was expected to attend. But when 3 o'clock came, Ellie was sitting in her car outside Maya's school. She'd left Tim in charge of the tasting. She'd sent Grace a brief text. "Can't make it, sorry." Then she'd turned off her phone. Now she sat in the parking lot, holding a small bouquet of daisies she'd bought at the grocery store. The tag read, "For Maya," not from Ellie. Just for Maya. She didn't know if Marcus would be okay with her being here, but she'd promised herself she wouldn't fix his problems. She would just show up, quietly, humbly, and let him decide what happened next. The recital started at 4. Ellie bought a ticket and slipped into the back row. The auditorium was full of parents with cameras. Ellie kept hers in her purse. Maya's class came on stage halfway through. She stood in the front row, wearing a yellow sunflower headband. When it was her turn to speak, she said her line perfectly. "I reach for the sun. I grow a little more every day." The audience clapped. Ellie's throat tightened. She clapped too, soft and steady. When the recital ended, families flooded the hallways. Ellie waited by the side door, daisies in hand. She didn't push forward. She just stood there. Marcus came out first, holding Maya's hand. Maya saw Ellie and broke into a run. "Miss Ellie, you came?" Ellie crouched down and handed her the flowers. "You were wonderful, Maya. I'm so proud of you." Maya hugged her, daisies and all. Ellie's chest filled with warmth. When she stood, Marcus was watching her. His face was unreadable. "Thank you for letting me be here," Ellie said quietly. She looked at Marcus, not at Maya. "I won't fix your problems. I only want to stand beside you, if you want me there." Marcus didn't answer right away. He studied her face, looking for something. An angle, a script. But there was nothing. Just honesty. "We need to talk," he said finally. "But not here, not now." "Okay. Sunday, after church and errands. My schedule, my call." "I'll be there," Ellie said. Marcus nodded. Then he took Maya's hand and walked to the truck. Ellie stood in the hallway, heart pounding, and let them go. She didn't know if Sunday would fix things, but she knew she'd done the right thing. She'd shown up, she'd stepped back, and she'd let Marcus lead. Saturday noon, Grace showed up at the hotel unannounced. Again. But this time, Ellie didn't freeze. She was in the laundry room, folding linens with 2 staff members, laughing at a story one of them was telling about a guest who'd mistaken the fire alarm for a doorbell. Grace stood in the doorway, looking completely out of place in her silk blouse and heels. "Eleanor." Ellie looked up. "Hi, Mom." "Can we talk?" "I'm a little busy right now." Grace glanced at the linens, the staff, the industrial washer humming in the corner. "I see that." For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Grace said, "I was wrong." Ellie blinked. "What?" "I was wrong," Grace repeated. "I pushed too hard, I judged too quickly, and I tried to manage your life like it was a business deal." Ellie set down the towel she was folding. "Mom, I don't understand what you're doing," Grace continued. "I don't understand why you chose him, or why you're folding laundry when you could hire someone to do it. But I see that you're happy, and I haven't seen you happy in a long time." Ellie's throat tightened. "Thank you." Grace nodded stiffly. Then she turned and left, heels clicking on the tile. One of the staff members whistled low. That was intense. Ellie laughed, shaky and relieved. Yeah, it was. That evening, Dean made one last attempt. He called Ellie and offered to handle brand protection after the recital photos started circulating online. Nothing scandalous, just parents posting pictures of their kids. But Dean spun it like Ellie needed saving. I can put out a statement, he said. Keep things professional. Dean, I don't need a statement. You're being naive. No, I'm being honest, and I'm done letting people manage my life. Ellie, goodbye, Dean. She hung up. Then she blocked his number. Aunt Ruth called 5 minutes later. I heard you told Dean to take a hike. How did you? Small town, honey. I'm proud of you. Ellie smiled. Thanks, Aunt Ruth. Now, Sunday, pancakes. You're coming to my place after Marcus's, and we're celebrating. Celebrating what? You growing a backbone. Ellie laughed. It felt good. Sunday morning, Ellie woke up nervous. She showered, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, and drove to Marcus's house at 10:30. He lived in a small blue bungalow with a neat front yard. Maya's bike was parked on the porch. Ellie could hear music playing inside, jazz, soft and warm. She knocked. Marcus opened the door. He was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, barefoot, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Come in, he said. Ellie stepped inside. The house smelled like coffee and butter. Maya was at the kitchen table in pajamas, coloring. Miss Ellie! Maya jumped up and hugged her. Ellie hugged her back. Hi, sweetheart. Marcus gestured to the table. We're making pancakes. You hungry? Starving. They cooked together, Marcus flipping, Ellie mixing batter, Maya choosing berries. It was easy, natural, like they'd done this 100 times before. When they sat down to eat, Marcus said, We need to set some boundaries. Ellie nodded. I'm listening. Work is work. If I need help, I'll ask, but don't step in without asking me first. Okay. Maya's pace matters. If things get serious between us, we move slow. She comes first. I understand. And public stuff, we keep it quiet for now. Not because I'm ashamed, but because I need to protect her from the noise. That makes sense. Marcus looked at her. Your turn. Ellie took a breath. I need you to tell me when I'm overstepping. I'm learning, but I'm not perfect. If I mess up, I need you to say something instead of shutting down. Fair. And I need you to trust that I'm not trying to control you. I'm just learning how to love without fixing. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. I can do that. Ellie squeezed his hand. Relief flooded through her. Maya looked up from her pancakes. Are you guys gonna kiss again? Marcus laughed. Ellie blushed. Maybe later, Marcus said. Okay, Maya said, completely unbothered. Then she went back to her pancakes. After breakfast, Ellie pulled a small wrapped box from her bag. Inside was a shadow box frame. She handed it to Marcus. What's this? He asked. The watch. I want to display it in the hotel lobby. Not as my trophy. As a shared story. Something that reminds people what integrity looks like. Marcus opened the box and saw the watch nestled inside, the engraving visible. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. I like that, he said. Maya tugged on Ellie's sleeve. Can I put stickers on the frame? Ellie laughed. Absolutely. They spent the rest of the morning together. Easy, warm, and whole. The following Thursday, the balcony was finally finished. Marcus had signed off on the final inspection that morning, and all the permits were approved. The new railing gleamed in the afternoon sun, and the boards were smooth and solid underfoot. Ellie didn't call the press. She didn't post about it on social media. She just tied a simple ribbon on the newel post and invited the staff to join her for a quiet moment. Marcus stood beside her, tool belt off, hands in his pockets. Maya sat on one of the 3 chairs they'd placed facing the sea. 2 regular-sized, 1 small. Aunt Ruth arrived with a pitcher of lemonade and paper cups. Grace came too, standing a few steps back, watching but not directing. A few locals passed by on the street below, waved, and kept moving. No speeches, no cameras. Just the sound of the ocean and the clink of ice in plastic cups. "You did good work," Ellie said to Marcus. "We did good work," he corrected. She smiled. "Yeah, we did." Maya patted the chair beside her. "Sit with me, Miss Ellie." Ellie sat down. Maya leaned against her shoulder, warm and trusting. Marcus sat on Maya's other side, and for a long moment they just looked at the water. The sun was starting to drop, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The town felt quiet, normal, like the gossip had finally burned itself out. Grace stepped forward, holding her own cup of lemonade. "Eleanor, can I talk to you for a minute?" Ellie stood and followed her mother to the edge of the balcony. "I wanted to say," Grace began, her voice softer than usual, "that I'm proud of you." Ellie's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really. You chose something real, something steady, and I see now that I was wrong to push you toward what looked good instead of what was good." Ellie's throat tightened. "Thank you, Mom." Grace nodded, then glanced at Marcus. "He's a good man. Don't let him go." "I won't." Grace squeezed her daughter's hand, then walked back inside. Ellie stood there for a moment, letting the words settle. Then she returned to her chair beside Maya. Marcus looked at her. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," Ellie said, smiling. "Everything's okay." That evening, the hotel cafe had a soft opening for guests. Nothing fancy, just coffee, pastries, and low music. The space was warm and inviting, with candles on the tables and the shadow box holding her father's watch mounted on the wall near the entrance. Marcus and Ellie sat at a table by the window. Maya was at home with a babysitter. Marcus had decided tonight was just for the 2 of them. "So," Marcus said, stirring his coffee, "we made it." "We did. It wasn't easy." "No, but it was worth it." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "I want to keep doing this, slow and steady, no shortcuts, no fixing, just us." Ellie nodded. "I want that too, and I promise, no more paying your invoices behind your back." Marcus laughed. "Good, because I've got a reputation to protect." "I know you do, and I respect that." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the other guests drift in and out. The cafe felt alive in a way it hadn't before. Not just because it was renovated, but because it was honest, real, built on something solid. "I talked to Maya last night," Marcus said. "About us." Ellie's heart skipped. "What did she say?" "She said she likes you, a lot, and she wants to know if you'll come to her soccer game next Saturday." Ellie smiled, her chest filling with warmth. "I'd love to." "Good, because I want you there too." They leaned across the table and kissed, unhurried, certain, right. When they pulled apart, Ellie could see the whole cafe reflected in the window behind Marcus. The soft glow of candles, the hum of quiet conversation, the shadow box on the wall. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Later that night, after the cafe closed, Ellie walked Marcus to his truck. The moon was full, and the ocean was calm, the waves barely whispering against the rocks. "I've been thinking," Marcus said, leaning against the truck. "About what you said at the recital, about standing beside me instead of fixing things." "Yeah? I like that, but I want you to know, I'm going to stand beside you too. When things get hard, when your mom pushes, When people talk, I'm not going anywhere. Ellie felt tears prick her eyes, but they were the good kind. Thank you. And one more thing. What's that? Marcus smiled. When I mess up, and I will, I need you to call me on it. Not in a mean way, but honest. Because that's what partners do. I can do that. Good. He kissed her again, slower this time. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling for you, Ellie, he said quietly. I don't know where this goes, but I want to find out. I'm falling for you too, she whispered. And I'm not scared anymore. Marcus pulled her into a hug. She fit perfectly against his chest, her arms around his waist, his chin resting on the top of her head. They stood like that for a long time, just breathing together, the ocean behind them and the moon above. When Marcus finally climbed into his truck, Ellie stood in the parking lot and watched him drive away. She didn't feel anxious. She didn't feel the need to control what happened next. She just felt steady, grateful, whole. Over the next few weeks, life settled into a rhythm. Marcus finished a few smaller projects around the hotel, but he also took on other jobs in town. Ellie ran the inn, hosted guests, and slowly let go of the need to manage every detail. Maya's soccer game came and went. Ellie sat in a folding chair beside Marcus, cheering when Maya scored a goal and laughing when she tripped over her own feet. Afterward, they went for ice cream. Chocolate for Maya, vanilla for Marcus, strawberry for Ellie. Grace visited the hotel twice more, each time a little softer, a little less controlling. She even complimented Ellie's choice of paint colors, which felt like a small miracle. Dean stopped calling. Ellie heard through Aunt Ruth that he'd moved to Boston for a new consulting job. She didn't think about him much after that. The rumors died down. A few people still whispered, but most of the town had moved on to other gossip. Ellie learned to let it roll off her back. Marcus had been right. People talked, and then they stopped. One Saturday afternoon, Marcus and Maya came over for lunch. They ate sandwiches on the balcony, and Maya drew another lighthouse, this time with 3 people standing beside it. Who's that? Ellie asked, pointing to the smallest figure. Me? Maya said. And that's Daddy, and that's you. Ellie's throat tightened. She looked at Marcus, who was smiling softly. It's perfect, Ellie said, hugging Maya close. Later, after Maya had gone inside to watch a movie with one of the staff members, Marcus and Ellie sat together on the balcony, their chairs pulled close. I've been thinking, Marcus said, about the future. Yeah? I don't know where this goes, but I know I want to keep building it. With you. Slowly. Honestly. Ellie took his hand. Me too. And I want Maya to be part of it. Not just on the sidelines, but really part of it. I want that too, Ellie said. She's amazing, and I care about her so much. Marcus squeezed her hand. I know you do. That's why this works. They sat in silence for a while, watching the waves. The air was warm, and the seagulls were calling overhead. Ellie felt a peace she hadn't felt in years. You know what I realized? She said. What? I spent so long trying to fix everything. The hotel, my reputation, other people's problems, but the best things in my life, my dad's watch, this place, you, they weren't things I could fix or control. They were things I had to trust. Marcus nodded. Trust is hard. Yeah, but it's worth it. He leaned over and kissed her temple. Yeah, it is. That evening, after Marcus and Maya had gone home, Ellie stood in the empty cafe and looked at the shadow box on the wall. Her father's watch gleamed in the soft light, the engraving still clear. For James, time well spent, love, E. She thought about everything that had happened since Marcus walked into her life. The storm, the rumors, the mistakes, the apologies. The slow, steady building of something real. Her father used to say that the best things in life weren't bought, they were earned. Not with money, but with patience, with honesty, with showing up day after day, even when it was hard. Ellie understood that now. She locked up the cafe, turned off the lights, and walked outside. The moon was rising over the ocean, casting a silver path across the water. 3 chairs still sat on the balcony, facing the sea. Ellie sat in one of them and pulled out her phone. She texted Marcus. "Thank you for giving me a chance." A moment later, he replied, "Thank you for taking it slow with me." Ellie smiled and put her phone away. She sat there for a long time, listening to the waves, feeling the cool night air on her skin. The future was still uncertain. There would be more challenges, more misunderstandings, more moments where she'd have to choose trust over control. But she wasn't afraid. Because love, the kind that lasted, wasn't proven with grand gestures or perfect moments. It was practiced in the small, steady choices of ordinary days, in showing up, in listening, in letting go. And when 2 people honored each other's dignity, when they stood beside each other instead of in front or behind, something extraordinary happened. Home appeared, not in a mansion or a 5-star resort, but in a seaside cafe after hours, in a little girl's drawings, in a hand held across a table, in the quiet promise that tomorrow they'd show up again. The lighthouse on the cliff turned slowly, its beams sweeping across the dark water. Ellie watched it for a while, then stood and walked inside. She had a life to live, a hotel to run, a man to love, a little girl to care for, and she was ready. Months later, on a warm spring afternoon, the Cliffside Inn held a small celebration, not for a grand reopening or a ribbon cutting, but just because. Because the balcony was still standing, because the cafe was thriving, because the town had moved on, and what was left was the truth. Marcus and Ellie stood together, watching Maya chase seagulls on the grass below. Grace was there, talking quietly with Aunt Ruth. A few regulars from town had stopped by, and the mood was light and easy. "I'm glad we made it," Ellie said. Marcus wrapped an arm around her waist. "Me too." "It wasn't easy." "No, but nothing worth having is." Ellie leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. She thought about all the ways love could be bought, performed, or faked, and she thought about the way Marcus loved her. Quietly, honestly, without needing applause. That was the kind of love that lasted. Maya ran up to them, breathless, and grinning. "Can we have cake now?" Marcus laughed. "Yeah, baby, we can have cake." The 3 of them walked inside together. The cafe was full of laughter and conversation. The shadow box still hung on the wall, her father's watch catching the light. Outside, the ocean kept rolling, the lighthouse kept turning, and inside, 3 chairs faced the sea, waiting for the next quiet evening, the next simple promise, the next ordinary day. Because love that lasts isn't loud, it isn't flashy, it doesn't need to be. It's just steady, true, and enough. And that, Ellie knew, was everything. The end.